Hey there, my name is Jillian. I'm a dual doctoral student in social psychology and cognitive science at Indiana University, Bloomington. Today, I'm going to be giving you a presentation on how to go about doing an ethical case analysis. Now, I love stuff like this because I think it is one of the most practical aspects of morality that we can talk about. Applying it to real life or potentially real life situations in which we might need to see multiple perspectives or we might want to understand the other side of things. I think that that just makes us all around better moral people to be able to see another's perspective and understand why maybe they believe differently than you do in an ethical situation. And this is a great way to train to do it in the classroom or to bring it to older populations to see other perspectives. I've done case analyses with middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students. There was a nursing home that I used to go to do case analysis with them, and it's always such a great time. And then sometimes it's just a relief to be able to talk about real life moral cases without having to feel like you're trying to defend your own position, that you can always be playing devil's advocate and trying to see other perspectives. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do this more of in a classroom setting, but it directly applies to how we can analyze cases and moral situations in real life. So, an overview of what we're going to be talking about. First of all, we're going to be using the APPE 2024 Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl case set. So, Ethics Bowl, that's a competitive club that people do when they're in high school. They have it in college. So, this is going to be the college case set. All of this is public and easily accessible online, which is awesome because you can access it, and then you can also use it as materials for your own classes or for people close to you that you want to teach about ethics or being able to see other perspectives. So I really thank Appy for that, and it is just a great resource for everybody. So the steps of doing a case analysis are very straightforward and simple. First, you're going to read the case. Duh. But I'm not going to read the case to you actually in this set. I'm going to have you go to the link if you can access this. If not, you really can just Google this stuff and find it so that you can be up to speed with the case that we're talking about and the different aspects that we're going to mention as we go through it. And next, you're going to identify relevant theories or perspectives that you might use. In this, if you haven't seen my other video on alternative theoretical models, that would be very, very helpful for this because it outlines some of the biggest theories in philosophy, anthropology, different aspects of psychology that provide different perspectives for ethical cases like this. So I'd highly recommend watching that video, or you might be familiar with some different theories and perspectives yourself. And then finally, you analyze the case with the theories. So you use the theories to argue whether you're wanting to argue for a certain position, whether you're wanting to play devil's advocate for another position, or whether you're just wanting to gather both sides, all of the perspectives that you can think of and all of the reasons that you can think of. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, find this case set. If you have access to this presentation, you can just click the Appy logo. It'll take you right to the PDF. If not, just Google Appy 2024 Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl case set, and you will be able to find it. So I'm going to give you a minute, pause this video, go read case 7. Again, this is the 2024 Intercollegiate, so college 2024 case set. And it's case number 7, Shades of Noir. So pause this video, go find that, read the case. It's about a page long, not long at all. And we'll come back and talk about it a little. Okay. If you did not pause the video, then you should pause it right now and go read the case. But if you did, you're back. Awesome. Very interesting case here. And I like this one a lot because it's very real. Like some of them, they could be potentially real. They're fictional scenarios, but you could imagine them being real. But this is a real ethical dilemma that we're facing in the Hollywood movie and TV world right now. So the question that I've pulled out for us to think about is, should Hollywood and television be allowed to glorify immoral behavior? So obviously this became a big thing when the Dahmer series came out on Netflix, I think it was, or another streaming service. But it's the same if you think of older shows that people love, like Breaking Bad, you know? So a lot of people are really interested in watching shows like this, but then we ask the question, should Hollywood be able to glorify this immoral behavior? And we can see it from different perspectives. So what I did for this one is I just took the three modern philosophical theories, so consequentialism or utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue theory. And I'm using the perspectives of each of those to analyze this question based on the information that was given to me in the case. So, as for the consequentialist perspective, we'll start with, you might say yes, because recognizing the gray areas in morality lead people to be less intolerant, perhaps. So, you could say that this would be a good consequence of allowing Hollywood or TV series to depict this immoral behavior. You might also say no, because being exposed to glorified immorality can desensitize viewers to immoral actions, and viewers may be more likely to excuse bad behavior in the real world. These would be negative consequences that come from allowing Hollywood and TV to do this kind of thing. So again, we're using the same perspective. We're saying yes, based on the consequences here, no, based on the consequences here. It's allowing us to see both sides and different reasons for each perspective. Now, for deontology, you might say yes, filmmakers have a right to produce whatever creative content they wish as part of their job. It's an inherent right of being a filmmaker. They can make what they want. You might also say no, because in principle, it's wrong to glorify or reward immoral behavior with a TV show, even if it's in a fictional setting, or viewers have a right not to be exposed to influential immorality in media. And this, honestly, this last reason wasn't a reason I even thought of until I was doing this case analysis. And I thought, okay, what are the different people that are involved in this moral situation? Well, the viewers are a big part of it. Do the viewers have inherent rights? Do we, as viewers of movies and TV shows, have a right of what we see or what we don't see? Do we have a right? Do we have a right to be exposed to this kind of real life stuff? Or do we miss out on something if we're not being fully informed by the kind of immoral behaviors that occur in real life? So you could really argue either way with that. But again, that's a perspective that I wouldn't have naturally thought of until I was using this theory and analyzing the rights of the different people involved in this moral question. And I think it made me think about the whole thing in a different way. So then finally, for virtue theory, you might say, yes, we should let them glorify or show this immoral behavior, because depicting good people doing bad things can lead to more tolerance. So we're thinking about the virtue of tolerance in this sense. Or understanding the motivations behind immoral actions may increase the empathy of viewers, which is stuff that I think the case reference too, leading to more tolerance, having more empathy, stuff like this. These are good traits. And if we're able to increase tolerance or increase empathy by showing good people, and I'm not talking about stuff like Dahmer or Breaking Bad necessarily here, but anything that shows a good person making a mistake, doing something bad, might lead us to be more tolerant in our daily lives. You might say no based on virtue theory, though, because it's wrong to promote immoral behavior in any capacity. Virtue theory is about being virtuous, and this is the direct opposite of being virtuous. So you might argue based on virtue theory, like, no, you shouldn't ever show bad things. It's because it's immoral and you don't want that kind of stuff out there. So again, you can see how I've taken these basic theories that I was familiar with, consequentialism, deontology, virtue theory, and kind of judged the moral question based on the stuff that was in that case. You know, the good consequences it talked about, the bad consequences, the different virtues involved that it cited in the case. And so sometimes it's really easy. Like if a case says something like, it would be the honest thing to do this, and you're like, boom, honesty, virtue theory, I can use that one. And sometimes you have to dig a little more, but sometimes those are the best reasons. Like deontology, I didn't think about the viewer's rights at first. And then I was using that lens and I was like, oh, well, this seems very important to the case, the rights of the viewers and what we think those are. So using these perspectives really can open your eyes to reasons that you might not think of by yourself. And you'll be able to make a case using just this, just the stuff that I have here. We could make a case for either side of the issue. And it's not about my personal opinions, what I believe. It's just about taking these theories and analyzing this case. So let's do another one. Same case set, 2024 Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl case set. I want you to now pause and read case number 13, Pummeled. I assume while I was drinking that you paused it, and you're back to talk about the question, is a ringside physician an ethical job? So first, I start here again with deontology. I thought that this one applied pretty well. First, you could say yes, because boxers have a right to fight each other. It's better to have physician support than not. You could say it's an inherent human right that people should be allowed to do what they want to do. If they want to fight each other, then they can fight each other. And it's better to have a physician there to help than to not have one to help. But you might also say no. The job of the ringside physician violates the do no harm principle. That is a very core principle for doctors, where they're supposed to not do any harm, but they're here encouraging their patient to cause harm. Like it kind of steps on the toes of that principle a little bit. But you might also say no. The principles of a ringside physician don't align with the AMA principles, which is what it talked about in the case. So you can see how deontology about rights and principles, ringside physicians violate some inherent principles or foundational principles. So the deontological view might be to say no to this question, but let's keep going. The next one I talk about is consequentialism, like I did in the last one. So, on the one hand, you might say yes, people will engage in combat sports with or without supporting doctors. You might say yes, because the number of boxing deaths have declined with ringside physicians. That was a really important one, I think, in the case. It had really good consequences, the consequences of having or not having ringside physicians. People are going to fight anyway, and more people will get hurt. But the number of deaths have gone down with ringside physicians. So it has better consequences. But you might also say no, because these physicians may give boxing the false appearance of being a safe sport. So it might have negative consequences of, see, we've got these doctors standing by, it's safe to be doing this. More people, children get involved in boxing, and you might see more people getting hurt. It might become more popular because people think that it's safer than it is. You could make that case as well. And then this last one, I took the view of an ethic of community, which is something that is popular in anthropological studies. Eastern countries that have a very collectivist attitude on things, so supporting the community over individual wants or likes or anything. So taking a kind of a collectivist framework view on this issue. You might say, yes, physicians have a duty to provide medical aid to the individuals that are hurt, regardless of the cause. So they have some kind of duty to help people. That comes into the community aspect. That's a physician's job. A physician's job isn't to pick and choose what they want to do. The physician is supposed to help people, and these are people that are hurt that need help. So it's better for the community for them to do that. Or also, combat sports protection is good for the community as a whole. As we saw with some of the other reasons, the number of boxing deaths have gone down. It's better for the community as a whole to have these ringside physicians in order to make sure people aren't dying and people can enjoy this sport the way that they want to. It'll make people happier doing that. But you also might say, no, it's bad for the community, because physician support of combat sports, just in general, could be negative. Like we talked about before, how it could encourage more people to get involved because they perceive it as being safer than it is, could encourage children to get involved because people think that it's safe with these ringside physicians, which wouldn't be better for the community. So you can kind of take a different type of framework perspective here, saying, what is best for the community? You could do the same with the ethic of autonomy that the anthropology study took, where you could talk about individual rights when it comes to ringside physicians. What are the individual rights of the physician or the boxer or anybody else? But here I took the community perspective. What do I think would be best for the community? And that's a very specific view of morality that you can reliably argue that morality is what's good for the most amount of people. It's a classic utilitarian argument as well. So that just shows a little more nuance to the kind of arguments you can make. You can take them with explicit theories like utilitarianism, deontology, virtues, like I did with the other points, or kind of spinning it to more of a social lens, which I'm going to show in our next case as well. So pause once again, go read case 17, familial favors. All right, let's continue. I really like this question involving nepotism, especially if you've seen my other video on alternative models. This line that we see where lots of different theories and frameworks reference fairness leads us to believe that fairness is a really important moral value for lots of people. But there's also a very common line where people talk about moral obligation to family, especially in evolutionary theory of morality. But those can be pitted against each other so easily when it comes to nepotism or giving more preferential treatment to family. And so I think it's such an interesting question. In this case, we're addressing the question, should parents set their children up to work at their own companies? And I thought this case made some really interesting arguments that I'd never thought before. So I'm excited to talk about this case analysis. So like I said, I'm taking kind of more of a social approach to morality on this case than the philosophical approach that I focused on with the other cases. So the first one I use is this morality as cooperation model, which is a social psychological theory of morality, being there to facilitate cooperation and limit conflict in a community. You might say, yes, here, parents should set their children up to work at their own companies because the morality as cooperation model directly encourages family cooperation. So you say, yeah, this is the best way for a family to cooperate, excuse me, because they're just hiring more family members. And also hiring a family might increase the group loyalty of the company. If everybody is from the same family, there's going to be presumably more cooperation and less conflict. And that is what in this model, morality is all about, facilitating cooperation. If you hire your family members, there's going to be great cooperation. But you also might say no, because a central aspect of morality is cooperation is making sure that things are fair, because violating fairness could increase conflict in a community. And nepotism directly counters fairness as not being fair to every candidate that applies. So you could also argue that it would lead to more conflict than cooperation if you were to not be fair. And I think using this social analysis of this case is a really interesting one, because I think you can cite on both sides companies that work really well because they're family based and companies that crashed and burned because the conflict involved with them not being fair led to their demise. So it's a very interesting one that has really cool points on both sides. The next one, what I did was I focused on autonomy. So the last one I showed you how you could apply the idea of social community when it comes to arguing about morality. But maybe here you take a more autonomous take, because there was a lot of stuff in that case about the autonomy of the children. So maybe you just want to argue, no, the parents shouldn't be involved because of the autonomy issue. So you could say being forced into a particular line of work decreases the autonomy of the individual, which we saw in the case. There's less justice for individuals that are competing against families. And so you have this very collective idea of hiring your family, the family working together, versus all these other individuals that talked about in the case that don't have family in lines that they want to go work. So it hurts their autonomy as well. And other employees could be harmed by the favoritism involving families. So if you think about a company that is a big enough company that they can't only hire family, there's going to be individuals in the company that aren't, I guess, in that in group of the family. So that could lead to a lot of conflict and violate the autonomy of those individuals if the collective unit constantly works together and undermines those individuals because they've got the numbers and they've got the cooperation. So in this sense, you say, based on the principle of autonomy, this would be very bad for a lot of the people involved. And then finally, I wanted to just talk about the principle of fairness, because fairness is something that we see in lots of different models. We see it in the anthropological model, we see it in virtue theory and philosophy, it's in moral foundations, evolutionary theory, and a lot of religious texts. If you talk about a spiritual basis of morality, you see fairness as a virtue in those. In the legal sense, everything about the legal system is supposed to be fair. So fairness, if there's any chance at finding some kind of moral absolute, a universal value of morality, I think fairness is a really good contender. So I think this is one that you can argue both sides with it, and you can argue about fairness in pretty much any case that you come across. So on the one hand, you could say, yes, parents should be involved, because family loyalty strengthens the family unit. It's the fair thing to do to treat your family like that. The fair thing to do is what helps you and your own. You want to be fair to your kids and give them, the opportunity that you think they should have. Versus the obvious no, nepotism harms communities because it decreases diversity. That's not fair. Choosing employees based on relatedness is not fair to all the individual candidates. Fairness is a very obvious one to use for no in this situation, because inherently nepotism is not fair. But again, so you can see how in all of these cases, you can use strict philosophical theories. You can look at the consequences and take a consequentialist perspective, um, and focus on that when it comes to the aspects of the case, or using some of the other theoretical models that are more based in morality as a social thing, or evolved from evolution. Especially in this case, you can see how you can make so many different arguments based on these different frameworks, kind of however you want in these cases. But I think I want to point out too, just doing this exercise of performing a case analysis on these cases or real world moral dilemmas and situations, it really is a great exercise for helping you to think of different perspectives. So then you can go home and have an argument about politics with your parents, and you can think, from a social point of view, from a fairness point of view, could I see it from their side? Or even if you agree with them on something, playing the devil's advocate just to, irritate them, or, or show them how good at moral discourse you are. That would be awesome. It's something I do a lot, and sometimes it's appreciated and sometimes it's not. So knowing that, but I think this is one of the parts of morality that I'm most passionate about, is having better moral discourse, being able to better understand other perspectives. It's not just about right and wrong. It's about these different approaches to morality and how we see these situations. And it opens your eyes a lot to different ways of approaching morality. Um, but it's also hard. It makes it tricky. It makes it harder to come to moral conclusions when you're able to see all the perspectives. But that's why I really like activities like this. So again, just to sum up, case analysis, very basic. You read the case, you identify some theories and perspectives you think are relevant, and you analyze the case based on those. And again, sometimes those are very obvious, like, oh, it's listing these virtues. Virtue theory is a very clear one. And sometimes you pick your theory and you're like, I want to try an evolutionary perspective on this. And I want to think of all the reasons for or against why this would be helpful or harmful to our evolution. And that can lead you to perspectives that you never would have thought of initially, which is so cool. And I want to thank Appy again for making all of these resources so public and easily accessible, so that we can practice this kind of stuff in class and bring it to other areas, to practice being good moral reasoners and having successful and respectful collective moral discourse. So again, feel free to contact me. I've got my LinkedIn and my emails there. And I'm excited to talk more about morality with anybody who's interested in this kind of thing. Thank you.